Hello guys, welcome back to another Division 2 video. So in today's video, we're going to break down 3 highly viable solo DPS builds for PVE. These builds are extremely powerful, so it makes them great for clearing heroic content easily. They are also fairly easy to set up, so if you're a beginner or returning player, these builds should be ideal for you. So the first build on this list is a spotter striker build that uses one of the fairly new brand sets that comes with a 70% optimal range bonus, as well as the named Visionario mask, which comes with 50% optimal range. This build is pretty much a hybrid between a spotter and striker build, so the primary weapon I'm running is the kingbreaker, which comes with the talent Perfect Flatline. And Perfect Flatline will amplify your weapon damage by 20%. Not to mention, this build also uses the spotter talent, which also adds a nice 15% amplified weapon damage to pulsed enemies. So that adds a total of 35% amplified weapon damage on top of the damage increase from the striker gear set. The next build on this list hits a lot harder than you would expect and uses the Ridgeway's Pride exotic chest piece. And you know, honestly, I feel like a lot of people sleep on the Ridgeway's Pride vest. Ridgeway's Pride deserves a lot more credit in my opinion, but this is a bleed build that packs a punch. The Sadist talent on the Lexington assault rifle combined with the Perfectly Wicked talent adds a nice 38% weapon damage. So that's a nice damage bonus, which hasn't even factored in the weapon damage bonuses from the other gear pieces. The last build on this list, but certainly not the least, is a high weapon damage Pestilence build with fairly decent survivability. The Pestilence is a fantastic weapon and works great in both PvE and PvP, as it now has a higher RPM and base damage after the recent buff. The Pestilence talent, the Plague of the Outcast, is nice and helps sustain high damage by applying a damage over time tick to enemies nearby. This is a very fun build to use, especially if you enjoy using the Pestilence. You can see some really good damage, and like always, I'll give you guys some great alternatives in case you don't have some of the pieces. So without further ado, please invite the like button to go out to lunch with you, but once you get there, spend the entire time chewing as loudly as possible with your mouth wide open. And so now let's get started. Striker is an amazing gear set, and it's very easily one of the strongest. Your weapon damage increases on each weapon hit, capping at 65% weapon damage when you reach max stacks. So just imagine adding 35% amplified weapon damage to that. The Flatline, Spotter, and Striker's Gamble talents all synergize very well together, creating a powerful trifecta resulting in a hybrid build that deals out a crazy amount of damage. The Legatus brand set that grants 70% optimal range from having 2 pieces helps to sustain high damage from a distance, making this a great build for long-range combat. Plus, having the Visionario name mask gives an additional 50%. And for those that didn't know, optimal range increases the efficiency of a weapon at a greater distance. So basically, you don't get damage drops if you are further from a target. So for the primary weapon, the Kingbreaker comes with Perfect Flatline and a 10% damage to target out of cover attribute, but with Perfect Flatline, you get 20% amplified weapon damage to pulsed enemies. And amplified weapon damage is more impactful, hence why it's called amplified, right? Now for the weapon mods, a rugged mini reflex sight for the long optic rail that adds 5% critical hit chance, a sturdy 762 extended mag for the 20 extra rounds, the linked laser pointer attachment for the long underbarrel rail, and a 762 flash hider for the extra 10% critical hit damage. This linked laser pointer attachment can be acquired from the Technician Weapon Specialization, which I recommend using because it helps to pulse enemies in order to activate both the Spotter and Flatline talents. For the secondary weapon, I'm using the Bullet King, and for the mask, the named Visionario piece that comes with 50% optimal range. Mine has weapon handling, but I recommend rolling critical hit damage or chance, and a 6% critical hit chance mod. For the vest, another piece of Legatus for the 70% optimal range, rolled with red core, crits, and a maxed out critical hit chance mod. For the talent, Spotter adds 15% amplified weapon damage to pulsed enemies. For the Striker holster, blue core armor with critical hit chance, and for the knee pads, red core weapon damage with critical hit chance. For the gloves, blue core armor with 12% critical hit damage, and for the backpack, blue core armor, critical hit damage, and a critical hit chance mod. Now, many of you already know, but since this is a 4-piece striker build, you'll be getting both the 15% weapon handling and rate of fire stat increase, so that's an added benefit, right? Also, another thing, and many of you already know this, but for those who don't, having the Striker backpack equipped will essentially increase your overall damage. Because with the Striker backpack, you will get the risk management talent, which increases total weapon damage from 0.65% to 0.90%. And at full stacks, that's 90% weapon damage. However, this will only apply if you're rocking a 4-piece set with the Striker's Gamble talent unlocked. For the stats, 51% critical hit chance and 91% critical hit damage. For the skills, I'm using the Crusader Ballistic Shield and Reviver Hive because these are my personal preferences, but they aren't necessarily required, so feel free to use what suits your playstyle. For the active modifier, I'm using the Reversal, and for the passive modifiers, I only have 2 unlocked at the moment, and that's By the Teeth and the Persistence modifiers. Both of these are good, but feel free to use whatever you have in mind. And a great alternative for the Kingbreaker is the FAL, or if you have the Lexington, that would be even better. But the FAL has a very high base damage, so it will work great, and it's very easy to get. In fact, you can actually craft it at the crafting table if you have the blueprint unlocked. Okie dokie, this next build is like Predator's Mark from the 1st Division. So if any of you guys played the 1st Division and enjoyed using the Predator's Mark gear set, then you just may favor this build. The Ridgeway's Pride Vest is very viable and synergizes well with the Wicked talent. The named Golan Gear Backpack, Anarchist Cookbook, grants 18% weapon damage when you apply a status effect to an enemy. This bleed build is ideal for close to mid-range combat because with the Ridgeway's Pride Chest piece, you can only apply bleed to targets within 15 meters. This build also not only hits extremely hard, but it has a bit of survivability as well. And it's also great in PvP if you decide to enter the Dark Zone with this. So for the primary weapon, I am using the Lexington Assault Rifle with the talent Sadist. Sadist is a very powerful talent and will amplify your weapon damage by 30% to bleeding targets. And for the weapon attachments, a rugged mini reflex sight for an extra 5% critical hit chance, a sturdy 556 extendo mag for the 20 extra rounds, a laser pointer for an additional 5% critical hit chance, and a 556 flash hider for that sweet 10% critical hit damage bonus. For the secondary weapon, I'm using the Carnage Light Machine Gun. This gun comes with perfect Sadist, so you get 35% amplified weapon damage as opposed to 30. And for the mask, 1-piece Fenris group for an extra 10% assault rifle damage, with red core weapon damage, both critical hit damage and chance, and a 12% critical hit damage mod. For the vest, the Ridgeway's Pride Vest, which will always drop with a red core weapon damage attribute, and both crits by the way, and a maxed out 12% crit damage mod. So the talent Bleeding Edge will apply bleed to an enemy you hit within 15 meters. In addition to that, you will also receive armor repair ranging from 3 to 48% depending on how many targets you have the bleed applied to. So this is why using the Bleed Hive would be a great option, because if you apply bleed to 5 targets, that's 48% armor repair per second. And with the Bleed Hive, you can apply bleed to multiple targets instantly. For the holster, Picaro's holster for the bonus 10% weapon damage with 12% critical hit damage. And for the knee pads, 1 piece of the Grupo Sombra brand set for the 13% critical hit damage bonus, with blue core armor and both critical hit chance and damage. For the gloves, 1 piece Walker Harris for the 5% weapon damage, rolled with blue core armor and both crit chance and damage. And for the backpack, the Anarchist Cookbook bag with the perfectly wicked talent. This talent gives you that 18% weapon damage buff for 27 seconds, whereas the normal wicked talent only lasts for 20 seconds. So I went with this bag because that 7 seconds goes a long way in my opinion. But if you don't have this name backpack, then you can go with a Cheska bag with Wicked. A Cheska bag is a great alternative because it will give you a bonus 8% critical hit chance. For the weapon specialization, there isn't any specific one that you need, but I'm using the Firewall specialization for the extracellular matrix mesh talent that recovers 200% armor and health from an armor kit. But you can also use the Gunner specialization for the 10% armor on kill bonus. Also, Gunner comes with the Banshee Pulse as well, which is excellent for crowd controlling NPCs, and it will also help activate the Wicked talent. Because remember, Wicked gets activated when you apply status effect to an enemy. For the stats, 50% critical hit chance and 176% critical hit damage on the Lexington. And for the skills, the Striker Ballistic Shield and Bleed Stinger Hive. Another thing I forgot to mention about the firewall specialization is that it also comes with the striker ballistic shield, which gives an additional damage boost for you and group mates. And for the skill mods, 8% shield health and active regeneration, which comes with the firewall specialization, and a weaved aramid fiber. This weaved fiber is actually a really good mod because you get a 5% damage bonus per enemy. And for the Stinger Hive, you want to have a damage, extra charges, and duration mod, right? Now for the active modifiers, reversal, and for the passive modifiers, I'm still currently unlocking them, but retribution would be really good since this is a medium range build with high crit damage. And just use whatever you have in mind for the other 2 slots. Now for those of you who may not have the Ridgeway's Pride Exotic chest piece, you can try getting another Walker Harris piece for the 5% damage to armor bonus and just roll trauma on it. Trauma is a great alternative for Ridgeway's Pride because shooting an enemy in the chest will apply a bleed status effect to them at any distance. However, the only downside is the 30-second cooldown. Also, you don't necessarily need to have all the exact pieces. For instance, some of you may not have a Fenris group mask, but may have a Walker Harris mask instead. So in that case, just swap gear pieces. As long as you're getting the set bonus, you're good to go. Okay guys, so this next build is fairly decent. This is a Pestilence build that utilizes the Ninja Bike Messenger bag to add on as much weapon damage as possible. Many of you guys are well aware that the Pestilence has gotten a buff a couple months ago, and it's now a lot better than before. The RPM is damn near 1,000 and its base damage is super high. And the Plague of the Outcast weapon talent helps with overall damage sustainability while applying a damage over time tick. In PvP, I like to call this the pesty poison, because these pesty ticks can be very deadly. So for the primary weapon, the Plague of the Outcast on the Pestilence works by applying a debuff for each weapon hit, dealing over 100% weapon damage over the span of 10 seconds. This stacks up to 50 times, and whenever an enemy dies with this debuff, 100% of the stacks are transferred to a nearby enemy within 25 meters. For the secondary weapon, I'm using the Black Market RPK 74. The base damage on this weapon is insane. Now for the mask, a Langmo mask with armor core attribute, both crit hit damage and chance, and a critical hit chance mod. And for the vest, another Langmo piece with blue core armor, both critical hit damage and chance, and a crit hit chance mod. For the talent, I went with Obliterate for the damage increase. So critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, and this stacks up to 20 times. So that's an extra 20% weapon damage at full stacks, right? And for the holster, Picaro's holster, for the extra 10% weapon damage with critical hit chance. Try and get one with critical hit chance because unfortunately, the Pestilence has no critical hit mods. And for the knee pads, one piece of the Heartbreaker for the 15% LMG damage, rolled with blue core armor and critical hit chance. And for the gloves, Contractor's gloves with weapon core and critical hit damage. Now, Contractor's gloves are nice because not only will you get a 10% LMG damage increase, but you also get an 8% damage to armor stat bonus, which helps increase overall damage. Now for the backpack, the Ninja Bike Messenger bag is one of the most viable gear pieces in the Division 2. This backpack will allow you to basically squeeze more stat bonuses onto your build. So as you can see, just by having 2 pieces of the Langmo brand set, I get the 3rd piece bonus. And by having just 1 piece Heartbreaker, I get the 2-piece bonus. So this backpack basically fulfills a requirement towards unlocking a gear or brand set bonus. And another cool thing is that you get all 3 core attributes with this backpack as well. Now for the stats, 52% critical hit chance and 81% critical hit damage. And for the skills, I'm using the Reviver Hive and Banshee Pulse. And here are the skill mods. You can always pause the video if you need more time to look. For the weapon specialization, I'm using Gunner for the 10% armor on kill bonus and Banshee Pulse to stun enemies. So yeah, that will do it for today's video, guys. This is Prajna. I hope this video brought value to you. Don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. Thanks for watching, and if any of you are interested, check out the Sword Gaming Discord server. We are a growing community of Division 2 players, so if you need help with in-game activities and stuff like that, then feel free to join and welcome. I'll leave a link in the description of this video, or you can check the banner on the channel page. Good luck farming, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them for me in the comment section, and I'll assist you. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and see you in the next video. Peace out.